Hi, my name is Darwisyah Durrani. I am the main creative director for the film From Where We Left Off, and today we'll be explaining what the film is about. Just a little synopsis on what it is about. It is essentially a film that touches on the necessity of revitalizing indigenous culture through art of literature as well as dance, and it basically seeks the attention of the locals today to see what lies within the Orang Laut culture and to realize the beauty that it entails. Just a little insight on where my inspiration came from. Growing up, I hear my father's stories on his life as an Orang Pulau, inhabiting the beautiful Pulau Semakau. And hearing him describe his way of life on that island was significant to me because it really played a significant role in my source of inspiration for this film. So his experiences, along with Firdaus from Orang Laut SG's experiences, they have definitely supported me in constructing the entire film. So when I first started scripting this film, I had like this tremendous urge to unify the Indonesian and Malay culture together because I have both parts in me. My Indonesian origins were heavily ingrained in the manner that I was reared, as well as the culture that I had the opportunity to live and experience as a child. And through my mother and my father's stories, I was also able to easily merge the Malay culture as well in this film. So the use of Javanese features, as you can see in the film, like the song and the attire, is actually a personal interpretation of my ancestry and is not intended to represent Orang Laut in any manner. However, you can see that the substance of the poem, the choice of location, the dance genre, and most significantly the context of the entire film is what contributes to the distinct portrayal of Orang Laut. So that is something that I wanted to make clear. But it's important to note that when viewing this film, it's really a film that I wanted to be open to different interpretations, because each clip you can view it differently as others. So really you can create or construct your own interpretations when you're viewing this film, and I think that's the beauty of it. I genuinely hope that when the film concludes, each and every one of you are able to ask yourselves, have we really progressed, or have we just succumbed to removing traditions to focus on building or constructing a modern society?
The sea is not a place. We watch its moods. We listen to its voice.
Okay, so for this scene, we watch its moods, we listen to its voice. It can be interpreted differently. However, I actually attached this particular phrase to a simple, clear shot of the waves. And I think I wanted it to be, although you can't really hear the waves, or like you can't really hear the actual sounds that was in that clip, just showing the sea itself, I wanted the audience to like kind of sit there and feel like you are in that like ambience. And I think like that's something that you can think about when you're viewing the film, to just not watch with your eyes but to watch with all senses.
And when to stay away as it grieves.
In this particular scene, when it says and when to stay away as it grieves, I think when we think of grieving and like certain emotions, we often associate it with human, right? But as mentioned earlier on, I wanted to also present a distinct portrayal of the relationship that Orang Laut has with the sea. And through this soul phase on how and when to stay away as it grieves, it can actually refer to how valuable, or can be used as a metaphor, which is the sea itself can be used as a metaphor, and how it is seen as extremely valuable to Orang Laut that it can be associated with human emotions such as grieving. And as you can see, I actually chose a clip where I'm caressing the sea, and in this clip itself, you can see that I pointed my palm towards the sea and I was caressing it. And this was actually a little shout to one of the superstitions that Orang Laut has, which is when they find that they have been catching too much fish only at the first hour of sailing, they would actually let the fishes go, because keeping those fishes can be associated with the act of being greedy. And you can see that I wanted to interpret that superstition into my hand movements and how I can kind of integrate it into this section of the film.
A wall. A dump. It is not possession to be bought and sold.
So for this last significant scene, it's not really just a singular scene, but it's also just a concept that I wanted the audience to grasp when they are watching the film, which is the concept of old and new. And this is where we also include the concept of erosion, or rather cultural dilution. And for example, in this scene where it says, the sea is not possession to be bought and sold. And in this particular scene, you can see the single, small, tiny, minute old boat just floating in front of huge yachts. And I think when you look at it, it can be pretty straightforward. Okay, there's an old and new, but what does that mean? What does that show about how West Coast, which is kind of sacred to Orang Laut, is being utilized now? And there's just a lot of things in this film where you would have to sit down and try to associate the clip with what the phrase is saying. And I really do hope that when the film concludes, you are able to come up with exciting personal interpretations of yours. Okay, so for the dance section, like I mentioned, the distinct portrayal of Orang Laut is also contributed by the dance genre, and what we danced here was Malay dance. It was also choreographed by me. And I think what you might want to look for when looking at this section is to look at the hand movement, the way we interpret, let's say, the sea and nature, and even appreciating the value of the sea and nature through our dance movements. And that's what I wanted to achieve when I was choreographing this section. So when I was scripting this section of the film, I wanted to emphasize on the concept of Tanah Melayu, and it is important to me because throughout this film, we were talking a lot about displacement, erosion, cultural dilution, and Orang Pulau, Orang Laut, they may not necessarily be Orang Melayu, but this land itself, Singapore, is Tanah Melayu, and I wanted to include that small aspect into the film as well, so that there's that bit of reminder.
Will they remember the way the sunlight fell on water?
The ending is slightly more straightforward. There are certain parts where it holds deeper meaning. However, it's just a nice wrap to the entire film, and it's like a time of breather for you to analyze certain things better.
That spiced and stirred the pot.
Significance of lemak cili padi, ketam, is actually one of the, I would say, signature dishes of Orang Laut. As you can actually check out Orang Laut's SG website, and you can see just multiple dishes that they find their signature dishes, and that's the reason why we've decided to portray that in our film. Yeah. So if you actually look at the film, there are certain sections where we shot vegetables and onions, and these are all ingredients that matter to. These are all important ingredients to Orang Laut, so that's why we actually decided to portray that in our film.
Our neighbors. Our friends.
Okay, so this part where you can see the two beautiful, lovely girls acting, and then one of them drops what they were holding is actually called Batu Seremban. It's a traditional Malay game, And when they dropped the game and then they looked to the horizon, they looked pretty fascinated, and then they looked back to where in this film were all their family. When they looked back to their family, they decided for them to come over and to look at the horizon. And it's not just like a happy ending, actually. It's actually a silent understanding between the younger generation and the older generation. And the fact that this was actually shot at a location that is sacred to Orang Laut, which is West Coast Park, it pretty much contributes to the concept of young and new that I wanted, young and old generation that I wanted to integrate together. So you can see the small girls being fascinated by the view of the sampan and like the beautiful sea and the beautiful sunset. And when they looked over to the family, it's actually kind of like a symbol of wanting to seek validation. So like when they look over to the horizon, they look back at the family, they're like, oh, look at this, you know. So there's that understanding between the old and the new, that okay, I may have faced a different part of West Coast in my time, but even when they're young, even to my grandchildren, they actually still see the same beauty. And that's how I wanted to end this film.